welcome to another episode of Pint and Politics. My name's Ben Sellers. I feel like I've been doing this for a long time now, actually. So the idea behind Pint and Politics really is that we just meet up with activists from around the movement, and we talk about politics over a pint or a non-alcoholic drink or a cup of tea. So far it's been really great. We've had some fantastic chats, and the feedback's been really good, and particularly enjoy the fact that people are telling me, you know, what they're drinking while they're watching it, and I think that's very sociable, and really appreciate all of the feedback on social media. So it is now going out on YouTube, Twitter and Facebook, so you've got a range of options of where to watch it, and also you can find those episodes again. If you can't watch it live, you can watch it later on if you can only watch a bit of it. So tonight we have we're going to be talking about the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party. This is what we like to do on a Valentine's Day night, I have got Nadia Jama with me today. Nadia was elected to the NEC in November on the Grassroots Voice slate. She's also very active in all sorts of ways, but just a few things that she's involved with. So Don't Leave Organise, the LRC, a sick pay campaign. I know she's taken a part in the All Grieve Truth and Justice campaign as well. And most recently, she's been campaigning on a recall conference campaign as well. I think, Nadia, you'll probably talk about that a bit later, won't you, as well? And also, Nadia, actually, I do want to ask something that I thought I'd seen somewhere. But is your son quite a decent footballer? Is that right?
He is, yeah. Where did you spot that? I don't normally talk about that, but yeah, he is. He plays in League One, I think they call it still.
Oh, that's nice. You must be very proud of him.
Absolutely, yeah. So he been in football from about the age of 9. And he was at Sheffield Wednesday to begin with as an academy product, and obviously he's now, like I say, he's at League One Gillingham, and they're doing really well. So yeah, really pleased for him.
That's brilliant. A bit of a contrast to my son, who came out with, because I'm a big Newcastle fan and I love football, and I have done, you know, since I was a kid. And I said to Jude, you know, let's go out and play football. And he said, "Why would you want to do that? Kick a bit of leather around with a load of sweaty men." So that's actually he's turned round now. He's 18 and he really enjoys it and comes to the match with me. But it's been taking a bit of a struggle to get there. We also have Laura Pickock, who's been on before. Laura, hiya, Laura. You were also elected to the NEC in November. You were obviously previously MP for North West Durham as well, and you've also done various things in the movement, like you've been a councillor, you've worked, you've been an activist for Unite the Union, a rep as well, I think, is that right? And you also worked for Show Racing the Red Card for quite a number of years. Are you okay, Laura?
I'm absolutely fine. Yeah, it's nice to be back. I think these have been lovely. It's nice to be in a bit more of an informal environment, isn't it? Than I don't know about you, but I find Zoom exhausting as well. Yeah. And I know I think Nadia's probably got the record for the most amount of Zooms in a week. But yeah, it's lovely to be back, Ben. Good
stuff. And how have you been wined and dined today, with it being Valentine's Day? Is that a silly question?
I don't know if Daniel's watching. We've had a lovely day. We did have a nice Sunday dinner. Yeah, so it's been lovely. Wined and dined. That would be stressing it.
My Valentine's Day has been somewhat ruined by the fact that my wife's in hospital, but the good news is she's going to be coming out soon. So I have kind of missed Charlotte today, and we do normally do something for Valentine's Day. We're not massive on it anyway. And what about you, Nadia? What have you been up to today?
Singleton, so just home alone with the cat kids, just waiting for this. So yeah, just very quiet for me today.
By the way, I'm a bit nervous tonight because I'm here just with Heidi, my daughter, who's quite short, and she's just locked me in the loft, like, you know, push it up and she was really struggling to lock me in, so I might not get out again. I am actually genuinely concerned about that. Anyway, these are things that sent to test us. So, Laura, what are you drinking?
Oh, I've got a cup of coffee. You won't approve. It's a nice cup of coffee and the biggest pint of water you ever seen.
It's against the rules to drink coffee at 8 o'clock, though, surely.
I know, sorry.
On a Valentine's weekend as well.
Oh, man.
You treated yourself to some red wine.
And I knew this was going to be like quite a few seconds of justifying myself, but I'm happy with my coffee, right?
And Nadia, what are you drinking?
I've treated myself to a rum and coke.
Oh, very nice. Oh, we haven't had a rum and coke yet.
Yeah.
Have you got ice in that, or is that just...
I have got ice, which is rapidly melting actually, so I need to start drinking it.
And actually, Laura, I just need to ask you about your running as well quickly. How's that going?
Just don't. I'm doing, it's too cold. I'm scared of slipping and stuff. So yeah. And so I'm doing just like online fitness classes inside the house. So yeah, my running career's over. I'll pick it back up.
By the way, I've got a shortbread stout, which is quite interesting. It's called Millionaire Shortcake. So and it was very nice actually. So anyway, tonight we are here to talk about the NEC, your newly elected members of the NEC. Obviously, the National Executive Committee is a huge part of the Labour Party, but it's often a bit kind of hidden in terms of like the members' knowledge, I think, as well. So what I'd like to do is talk about, you know, some of your role on it, obviously, but also maybe explain the way it works a little bit and talk about, you know, what the potential is for change using the NEC and so on. But just to start off with, really, you know, obviously people would have seen the campaign that you had to get onto the NEC. Now, having been elected on, Nadia, do you regret it? I know it's a lot of hard work, isn't it?
Well, there's been lots of head in hand moments, hasn't there, Laura? And there's been a few heads gone emojis between me and others on there, but no, not at all. I don't regret it, because I think, you know, the members need a voice, they need representation, and that's what we are there to do. You know, we were the grassroots 6, obviously, unfortunately only 5 of us got on, but we are there to represent the voices of the many within the party. So yeah, it's challenging, sometimes it's hostile, but I don't regret it at all. And I think what kind of sustains me is, I guess, you know, Bob Crow often, well, he said, didn't he, if you don't fight, you know, if you fight, you won't always win, but if you don't fight, you will, you know, you'll always lose. And somehow recently, I've started to hear Ian Lavery. You know, it's not called The Struggle for Nothing, and Laura will do a better example of him saying that. But yeah, it's going to be challenging, and it has been, but don't regret it at all.
Yeah. What about you, Laura? I mean, it's just hard, isn't it, to do all of this work, which, you know, as Nadia says, you know, it's a you know, it's vital work, and it's stuff that, you know, it's about your commitment to the movement, but it's also, I imagine, it's, you know, massively hard work at the end of a kind of working day and all the other commitments that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I think people think you just like appear as candidates, but what people don't know as well is even before you start to campaign, and I think we should just be like open and kind of transparent about this, is there's a bit of a process on the left as well to decide who is going to be the candidate. So if you imagine all of the different groupings on the left as well, they have to go through a process to decide who are going to be the team that go, and like some people call it slate. I prefer to call it a team because there's nothing wrong with standing like a united front that is banded together by their politics to say, okay, now we're going to stand against the right, or the right are going to stand against us, whichever way you like to see it. So that happens before you even begin to say, this is what I believe in, this is why I'd like to stand. And come on, it's not like the most like jazzy thing to try and like get people excited about, is it? National Executive Committee, governing body of the Labour Party, everything happens behind closed doors. I suppose one of the jobs that Nadia and I and the other three who did get on, and it was a real shame that Anne Henderson didn't get on, but essentially our job is to try and like lift the lid on it, open it up, make it more transparent, and that's not easy when, as you say, it's very much like, and we can like maybe just do a real whistle stop tour of how it actually works, but when it's lots and lots of papers, like they don't even all fit on one email, that's how many papers there are, and at the end of a working day, or you have to take leave from work or whatever, and so yeah, I don't regret it, but obviously we talked last time, didn't we, Ben, about coming straight out the back of a general election defeat, and I definitely felt and I suppose however you feel individually about the political defeat, the political fight goes on, and you just have to get back in the mix.
Yeah, and just you were saying there about the attitude that you've gone in, kind of lifting the lid on it. So there are kind of like lots of, I suppose, kind of rules that have gone right back, or kind of etiquette around NEC, and also loads of stuff actually within the Labour Party and within politics generally. And with your parliamentary career, what you did was you just said, well, actually, I'll respect the rules that I think they're important, but I'm not going to come into Parliament and just keep quiet and make my maiden speech about the wonderful landscape and and tube stops around my constituency. Not there's anything wrong with that, but
or tubes.
Some people did do that, but like but
did you say tubes, Ben, like as in tube stops?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But you went in there and you said, look, no, I'm here as a representative of the working class, and therefore I need to kind of, there's a certain attitude that I have to this. And would you say the same with the NEC then?
Yeah, I think both Nadia and I like have had that attitude. Having that attitude though, and like becoming comfortable with that, are two different things, and we're working our way to that. So obviously understanding, I think to be comfortable with like rejecting rules, you have to be comfortable with what they are first, to decipher whether they're useful or not, or whether they whether they're necessary, essentially. And so it's just a process of getting used to how it actually works. And I've never been a Labour Party rule book geek, but you all of a sudden have to like really understand the rules and like how different structures work. So yes, you can have that attitude. It's just we're just getting there. We're just getting more confident.
Yeah, I think we're finding our feet, and obviously there's the rule book, and then what we found is there are then additional rules on top of that. So there's code of conducts, and and I think it's trying to get to grips with all of that, because as Laura said, there's so much paperwork, and trying to make sure that we've grasped it all isn't easy. But I think we're getting into the swing of that now. I think we've got, we've made a few more sort of like strides in that, I think, since we've had our second full NEC. But there are so many subcommittees that there seems to be sort of like a meeting every week, isn't there, Laura? It's like, it is quite intensive, and each part has a different section that we're working through. So, it is quite a big task to get your head around, definitely.
You do, by the way, and like I think Nadia and I have like really rejected this from the start. You do get people who say, oh, well, it's not really like a political committee. It's not, you cannot really be political on it. Honestly, every single agenda item is political, and you need to fight for the members and the membership and your socialist principles of, I believe as a socialist, it's about more engagement, more power to the membership, more kind of democratic decision making. So of course it's immensely political, and it's our job to inject the politics even through that bureaucratic framework. So
I'm aware that quite a lot of people won't know necessarily how it works. So do you want to just give a quick sort of, as you say, kind of quick, brief kind of explanation of what the function is, and then and also who's there, who's at the full NEC meetings? What do you want to start with that, Laura? And
well, I'll ring up Nadia. I'll ring Nadia and say, Nadia, what's this about? I don't know whether she should make a start.
Well, I mean, I kind of looked at the online stuff that they do, and I think there's the NEC, as I said, there's the full NEC, which is currently chaired by Margaret Beckett, and the vice chair is Alice Perry. So you've got an MP and a councillor representing that, but within that we have obviously reports from the leader, we have reports from the deputy and the general secretary. But I think last week there was something like 45 people in the meeting. There are so many different people, and getting to see them all and know them all, I still don't think we've quite got that yet, but there's representations from the trade union movement, there's representations from the PLP, there are staff members, obviously there's us as the CLP reps, and I think there's something like 38 actual members of the NEC, but the meetings, like I said, we can have over 45 people in a Zoom call. And then, like I said, there's then different groups within that. So you've then got your joint policy committee, obviously we've got the equalities committee, there's the business board, and I mean, I could say what each of those do, but you've got the audit and risk management group. You've then got organisation committee, which has got another chair and sub chair, and so the different people from the NEC meeting also meet in these other groups as well. So you definitely see the similar sort of people turning up. Sometimes leader and deputy, but not always. There's the disputes panel. And then there's lots of different working groups. So it is just, like I said, it's the schedule. I think we've had 3 versions of the schedule of all the meetings. But I think fundamentally what people want to know is that the NEC is supposed to set the strategic direction. And that's why it's really important that we've got socialists involved in that element of it. But the other subgroups are important as well, because they all build up to that strategic vision as well. But yeah, it is challenging, isn't it, to know what meeting is that week, what we need to do, what papers.
Exactly, it's so challenging, and sometimes a short notice, and like if you work as like me and Nadia, then it's frustrating. But obviously it's a privilege to be elected, and if people just think about like, okay, what is the purpose of the National Executive Committee? And as Nadia said, it's like about strategy, about governance, it's about the finances, it's about being legally accountable to members, about making sure there's proper governance of what takes place in the Labour Party. And then buried beneath all of that, really, and this is where we take it back to the politics, is about how do we operate as a political party. And the NEC, I think, has a really important job of setting the tone for how we operate. And each decision, people like Nadia and I, and there's also affiliate groups, so the affiliates are like the trade unions, so you'll have trade union representatives on there too, who aren't directly elected by the members but are sent to represent working people from their trade unions. And some people will, I suppose, naturally vote together based on a set of political principles. And the question that we're always asking ourselves is this giving members more power, more influence? Is this making our political party like more attractive and more welcoming and more inclusive? Can people get involved? And is it taking us closer to being able to win a government? And of course, Nadia and I think, and the others who are left-leaning think within the Labour Party, think that that is socialist principles that will be widely appealing and popular to gain a majority.
I was just, I mean, I keep rereading the Ben diaries all the time. It's just a constant thing. But I was reading the diaries from the 80s, and obviously at that point, Dennis Skinner and Tony Benn were on the NEC, and quite often, fighting battles against the kind of, early kind of adoption of what would then become New Labour kind of policies, but also, as you say, a kind of strategic direction. And they were quite fierce, some of those NEC meetings. I mean, like they really did battle, and they would make themselves very unpopular, and there'd be strong arguments. So when you say that there are some people that don't see them as political, I would just invite people to read some of those diaries, because it's a battle. It's an arena for battle. And does it take a bit of time to get used to that, Laura?
Well, it's just I don't know what it is. Every single political arena I've ever sat in, be it the county council or as a member of parliament or on the National Policy Forum or on the National Executive Committee, there is always people who say, don't bring politics into this, or stop being so factional. And of course, that is a political position. That is about the status quo being able to prevail, and usually that is about not upsetting the establishment, the established order of things. And we don't think the established order of things is working for most people, and that's why we want to interject, resist, question, propose alternatives, and we do. So we propose motions, we say this is how it could work, this is what we think could work differently, and so to be honest, I kind of like laugh now when people say that, because it's not an accident anymore. I understand that it's part of a political tactic.
And Nadia, what sort of things are you kind of like in short term and medium term? What sort of things are you hoping to achieve on there?
Well, I think it's like Laura said, it's about making sure that whatever we do, does that benefit the membership? What decisions are being made that is going to ensure that their voices are heard. So that is our kind of aim, short term and long term, really. So that's why the motions that we bring forward, the questions that we ask are all around those things, because I think for me, one of the things I found not difficult, but just how different, we're all in the same party, but how different we think about the same things. And, we have asked a number of times, I think that, there's the leader report, there's the deputy leader report, there's a general secretary report. Well, where's the CLPs? We want our slot on there to talk about the things that matter to our CLP members, and there doesn't seem to be the opportunity for that. So, we're still pushing to try and get our own agenda into the agenda, and I think we'll have to keep battling on that. But I just think it's about what do members want, and we know, and the platform that we all stood on, and the reason why I got involved in politics was about the socialist agenda. The last two manifestos, making them fit for purpose with the current crises that we have, is what the bulk of our members want, is what is right for us to do as a party now. So we will challenge, we challenged around the schools, and we can talk about that a little bit later on. We've challenged around zero COVID strategies, elections. We want to make sure that the party is building on what that social agenda has been, because that comes from the membership, and that's how we win in 2024. There is, for me, that's how we've got to fight to make sure that continues. When the 2017 manifesto came out as a member, I was like, yes, this is exactly what Labour is all about, and we've just got to keep pushing that forward. So I think that is ultimately our aim, is to ensure that that's what we're talking about and that's what we're building on.
And Laura, there's obviously, I mean, it's quite tricky, because on one level the NEC is quite sort of technical and dry, and you're winning maybe small incremental changes to the rule book, or the the way the conference works, and all of those sort of things. And then I'm just wondering, do you feel that you're following in that tradition? Are you trying to juggle that alongside making some of the more political points that you've talked about as well, about the strategic direction of the party? Is that possible to do both of those things, or is it important to do those two things?
I just like listening to you say that. I think I'm just more and more of the mind that it's not that binary, that it isn't, oh, okay, we sit here and talk about, I don't know, sectoral collective bargaining or a green recovery deal, or we talk about point 3 on the agenda, which is like the terms of reference of how a political party will work, for example. Actually, and I know it's maybe like a bit boring, but both are part of a political project. So I constantly think about what is a political party for, and there is a real push for the professionalization of politics. And actually, you know, it might look glossy, it might look like, you know, somebody could run like a big business at the helm of something, but is it exciting people? Is it drawing people in? Is it making people believe that change is possible? Is it telling that story about how change is perfectly possible? And I suppose it's like that dichotomy between grassroots politics and the professionalization of politics. And what we're trying to do, even on the NEC, is say, this is the space for the members. So the members run this. You get your mandate from the members, you know. So, and I don't know if I'm kind of making sense, but I just think one follows the other. So it's important that we open up the Labour Party to have as many CLP delegates on there, and CLP stands for Constituency Labour Party, so that there's people coming from communities to sit on there to represent what those communities want, what it is, kind of what working class people are facing. And that in turn influences the tone of the party, how it feels, how welcoming it is, how inclusive it is. One is in a relationship with the other. And so, yeah, maybe it might feel technocratic, but I suppose it's just back to the point of like every single thing on there is political.
Yeah,
And,
Nadia, do you want to
yeah, I was just going to say, and I think we've got to push the boundaries, because we're in a different space now on the NEC. You know, previously we had a supportive leadership of those left ideas and those socialist agendas, and you know, we're in the minority. You know, we were under a STV election, which is why we didn't get obviously all 9 positions. So I think we've got to think outside of what we would normally do on that NEC. So we're about connecting the left inside the party and outside of the party to push that agenda forward. So I think that's where we're coming from, is pushing those boundaries to get, you know, debate inside and outside. And that's why I was saying, you know, when the party is maybe taking a stance that we know the grassroots don't agree with, we'll lead on that, in terms of, like we did with the school closure. You know, that was something that was driven by the GV5, particularly Laura, and we built that kind of agreement across the left trade unions, the SCG, with all of the left groups, and you know, not just us, but the trade unions, the teaching unions, got that change, and the party came along with it. So I think that's the other thing that we're doing differently within the NEC that maybe hasn't been done in the past. Yeah,
because I mean, I really noticed this during the campaign over the summer and into the autumn, that you were very much kind of activists. You know, that's what you were proud to be. You know, you're coming from that part of the movement, and obviously during the Corbyn era, activists have been kind of, I mean, to be honest, I think there's been gaps there as well in terms of, you know, the acknowledgement of activists. But I do think that there was, certainly from Jeremy, there was a real sense in which, you know, activists had a huge part to play in the party. So, I mean, you're kind of bringing, do you feel that the grassroots you know, members are bringing that into the NEC, and is it a bit of a shock to people, or are you kind of, in what's the like feeling in those meetings, Laura?
Well, the first part of what you asked, I think it's about access, isn't it? So like, who are we prioritizing? And we're prioritizing the members, and it might sound, you know, a bit cliche, but we'll come back to that point. Like, what is the party? Well, it's not the Parliamentary Labour Party. That's one constituent part. It's not the leadership. That person gets the mandate from the membership. It is about all of those people who pay their subs month after month after month, because they are like paying into a levy to say, I believe in this set of political principles. So they now have a seat at the table around the NEC through the grassroots voice GV5 candidates who won. And it's not to say that the other members on the NEC don't care about the members or bring it up. They definitely do. But I suppose that's our like primary function for being there. So it's about access for the members. So, you know, we do, if we get emails, if we get, you know, about a particular issue, we do make sure they're mentioned. We make sure that their voice is heard by the General Secretary, by the leader, by the Deputy Leader, and all the other people around the table. And on like the vibe, it's at times not good, Ben. But it's tense because there is a change in power in the party, and I think there's like a reorientation of the movement, and we sometimes do not understand why things that we might think are common sense are not just accepted. And, you know, so we challenge all of the time, and this is what's hard, because, you know, they are private meetings, and I'm sure that members of the movement might think, what are these people doing for Will? What are they like? How are they our voice since they've been elected? But I'm sure Nadia will want to come in next. We promise that at every single step of the way, we're raising your concerns, some of which is public, very public. Some of it is in the mundane.
Yeah, I think Laura's right. I mean, we were very much that it isn't Nadia Jama that's elected. Yeah, I'm on the NEC, but it's the voices of the members we're there to represent. So we get emails, as Laura said, we raise those questions in meetings, we forward emails on, you know, we do a lot for the membership, and we need to hear more from the membership, and we can probably talk about that a bit later on. But, you know, having an activist background, I think the difference is that you don't give up until you win. And you know, I think some of the people in the meetings are probably just not used to that and think, you know, why are you bringing this up again? You know, we talked about that before, and you know, I think we very much are doers, and we want to see the right thing get done. You know, I'm also a Unite member, and, you know, we have training around leverage, and that is really important that you continue to try. And like I said, that's why I think it's as important to be active outside of the party as in, and we will use all of those mediums to try and get the right result for members. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I appreciate the what Laura just said there about it being a lot of this being done in private, and that must be quite tricky actually, not to be able to just come out and say, you know, tell the movement what exactly the details of what are going on. So I do appreciate that, but obviously you can still talk about, and, you know, how you communicate this is an important part of all this, isn't it? But you can communicate the sort of issues that have been discussed, and, you know, what your approach is. I just wondered whether you could just give us a quick flavour, maybe, Nadia, if you could just start us off on one or two of the sort of big issues that you've been. I know there was a NEC meeting last Thursday, so just on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously each meeting's different, as I said, so there's different topics, but I think, you know, last week was very much about focusing on elections. There was community organising unit and the Ford inquiry. So it was quite a tense meeting anyway, because there was a lot of things on there that, you know, we're raising, you know, the closing down of the community organising unit when we're about to go into elections, and, you know, that group being particularly from BAME backgrounds, you know, that generated a lot of debate and discussion. The Ford inquiry, you know, this is something we've been pushing on right from the election. You know, the members are feeling really frustrated, and I think the challenge for us is, yes, there are things that are confidential, but the members pay for this party to exist, and I think they have a right to know exactly what is going on. And I think, you know, with the Ford inquiry particularly, people feel that that's just been kicked into the long grass, and we know how important it is to understand what went on there. And just from, you know, an anti-black kind of racism element, you know, around that, you know, we've had the MPs, I think there was 9 that came out around the Ford inquiry saying that the party has to do something. We're pushing for this all the time. We had a really awful incident occur around a particular area for, we were asked to put forward some NEC reps into a local sandwell, and it's out in the public domain, so I will mention it. And I think I nominated Yasmin Dar and Mish Rahman, and they were refused. So obviously, you know, this is quite a sensitive subject. There's obviously Black and Asian members that were putting forward. We wanted it to be gender balanced. We want to make sure that, you know, Black and Asian members are represented in anything that the NEC is doing, and that didn't happen. And that whole debate and dialogue was just horrendous. I mean, it was just awful. And, you know, I've submitted a letter. I think Laura has, and quite a few other people. And I think the party's just got to understand that when we talk, and it was really interesting because the deputy leader and the general secretary had spent most of their report talking about diversity and inclusion, and then we got to a point where they could have put those, you know, words to effect, deeds not words, and that didn't happen. So there's a lot of work to do. I think, you know, there'll be further output from what happened last week, because that isn't something that we can accept. That isn't something that the membership can accept. And I think from the Ford inquiry perspective, even more so. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do. And I think, you know, we want comrade-like meetings. We do not go to those meetings to kick up a fuss for no reason. We go there to raise what the members are saying, and to make sure that the party undertakes socialist principles in everything that we do. And I think what I find really funny, not in a funny way, but what I find really interesting is that the right of the party never see anything that they do as factionalism. It's always the left that are blamed for factionalism, and that is not the case. So yeah, there's a lot of issues, I think, currently around race within the party, and I think that's going to probably continue for quite some months, to be fair.
Yeah, well, I mean, I you know, thanks for that work, Nadia, that you're doing, and keep pushing. And as you say, that kind of almost like that trade union attitude of keep going until you get an answer. And I think.
Can I just say something, Ben? Like, because it is also like Valentine's Day, that the best thing that's happened to me is to meet Nadia. She's such an excellent comrade. So if people are watching Socialist Telly and you're not following Nadia Jama, go and follow her account, because I wasn't joking when I said I'd ring Nadia. She is very thorough in her paper reading, and every line is looking for where we can interject. And I just wanted to say something about factionalism, Ben, and I think we kind of probably just need to understand that it is a division of politics, and that in the same way as I would not give on my socialist principles, why would the right within the Labour Party give on their politics? They want to win every position, hold every position, and that is what is taking place. Some of it is unnecessary, I think, in terms of like creating agitation, and I think especially you know, some of the behavior of the leadership I've found is unnecessarily aggressive against the left. And, you know, we need to repeat time and time again that the socialist strand within the Labour Party is a long-standing and powerful political grouping within the Labour Party. And the Labour Party has always been a better party because of that grouping, and that socialists should stay, and it is their home in the Labour Party. And I am as dedicated to making sure that in the future socialists win every single position of the party, you know, every single level at CLPs, at NEC, at the MPF. So factionalism really is just about, I think, people asserting their politics.
And obviously there's been an awful lot of talk about suspensions and that I mean, no doubt that's been talked about at the NEC as well. I know that both of you were quite concerned, not just in terms of the kind of technicalities of that, but also about the kind of mental health impact as well. Has that been discussed at the NEC?
Yeah, I mean, we did we wrote to Keir actually, and we wanted to meet with Keir and Angela and the General Secretary about it, because, you know, we were hearing from members that were really distressed, you know, receiving suspension emails late at night, not really clear why they were being suspended. And, you know, it just seemed that, you know, that didn't need to be the case. The party could have dealt with that in a much better way. And we wanted to talk to the leadership around that, and unfortunately they wouldn't meet with us. But I think, you know, the well-being of our members should be front and centre of what the party's doing. They are the people that are knocking on the doors for us. They're going out in all weathers to ensure that we get, you know, Labour councillors and a Labour government. And I think they've now recognised actually, and there is some new guidance that again, I think this has already been spoken about, so I'm happy to speak about it again, that, you know, they are looking at their guidance around the suspensions, because I don't think they anticipated what happened, you know. And one of the things that I particularly said in the meeting on Thursday is that, you know, the competent business that was used as the rationale, when Jenny Formby sent that out, there was no flashpoints in CLPs, there was no suspensions, so it never needed to get to the point that it did, and I think they're recognising that now. But we will always obviously support the members and you know, put their interests forward, because I think, like I said, for me the members are the greatest asset that the party's got, so we have to fight for them. I don't know if Laura wants to add any more on that, but
well, I suppose it's just like, what I don't want for this political party, for any member, even those that I really like vehemently disagree with politically, I don't want them to feel fear in speaking in a meeting. I don't want them to feel hesitant. I want there to be a freedom to their speech. Of course, we know with a freedom to your speech comes a responsibility to not impact on others. We understand that. Or you know, there's a responsibility to make sure that, like, we are being as welcome as possible. But what we cannot have is a political party, and I said this in my CLP the other day, like, it's healthy to have these political conversations. It's okay. You know, we're not part of like a craft club. We've come together to join a political organisation to talk about politics. And I don't want any member to be sat there in a CLP thinking, you know, and of course, you know, if you're thinking about kind of forms of bigotry and things like that, we must hold members to account. I don't want them to think, oh, I'm going to get suspended because my face doesn't fit, or like my politics isn't quite right, or there's like, even not that it actually will happen, but a fear that it will happen.
Yeah.
You know, and so we want, I suppose we just want to create a culture which is as conducive to healthy political debate, which gets us to the best political positions.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a bit unprecedented, this, isn't it, Nadia, really, in the party, that we've got to a position where there's kind of like, it feels like there's a real shutting down of spaces. I mean, you know, I was a member, at least on and off, during the Blair years, and I didn't feel that. I felt that there was still space to debate. I mean, I don't know if I'm just looking at it back with rose-tinted glasses. I know that I missed quite a lot of meetings in those days. But,
where were you, like?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
No, do you know, I think, you know, from the emails that are definitely coming into us, it's not just within CLPs. You know, women's forums that have been established are now being challenged to say that they're not being recognised. We've had, you know, CLPs being brought into special measures. there's a whole raft of things, and there seems to be a bit of a grip with some regional officers as well. And obviously, we spoke at the NEC last week about some of the things that have been happening in Durham. You know, Bristol West. We've all seen what happened in Bristol West just not that long ago, a few days ago. It just seems unnecessary. It's it's a bit. I don't know why the party feel that that level of intervention is necessary and needed when we are so close to needing those people to be out. Well, obviously we're in lockdown, but campaigning for us as a party. It just does not make any sense. And as I said, we obviously will support members, and we should let us get in touch with us and let us know if you're having any problems. But it just seems to be throughout all functions of the party at the minute that this clampdown, it's not in one particular area, which is really worrying.
I think it's I don't even think it's unique to the Labour Party. I think it's maybe, and it might be about confidence of the left. I mean, I don't know. But I think there is a shrinkage, and we have to refute this, a shrinkage of the space that left politics is seen as permissible, and that I think that's our job in the next few years, to keep asserting our right to talk about socialism, to have these conversations, and open up those spaces, particularly in the community. I know I spoke to you about that last time, Ben, but I don't know. I just feel like it's a tactic to curtail left-wing politics.
And by the way, I mean, this wouldn't be acceptable if it was being done by politics that we support either. I mean, I've had conversations with elements of the left within the Labour Party as well about a kind of dogmatic kind of factional approach to politics, as opposed to one that encourages debate. I mean, we have to be a party that is comfortable and and encourages debate. I mean, with all of the provisos that Laura's already given, Nadia, do you think that, I mean, it's dangerous, it's not just about one leadership coming in and imposing. It would be dangerous, wouldn't it, if it was on being done on our behalf as well.
Yeah, I think it's about education, isn't it? I think we need to educate members to have those debates safely, because there are going to be people that have different opinions. But we've got to be able to talk through those, and some people will change those opinions through that dialogue, and I think that's something that sometimes is missed. But like I said, I think training is something, and that was something that Laura and myself and the other GV5, when we heard the LBC interview, and people not being conscious to those discussions around sort of fascism, and not understanding those nuances sometimes, and that comes with education, doesn't it? And I think that's something that the party really should be focusing on as well, internally, and also how it educates people within the community, because the trade union movement would have done that previously. When I was growing up, that's where you learnt your politics, was through the trade union movement, and I think the party's got some space that it could fill around that educating of the community, to be fair.
And I think we'll have to be, because if we think, I really agree with what Nadia just said there, because if we think about how any of our minds have been changed, it is, well, for me anyway, it's often been through quite painful dialogue sometimes, where recognizing that you've been wrong, or that maybe you've not been in the right place, or completely kind of confined by your own consciousness. And those periods of dialogue in a safe and comforting environment change minds. And this is what goes to the heart of a political party, isn't it? I want to be challenged. I want to have my mind changed. I want people to awaken my mind to other ideas, because the system isn't bringing that, is it? And once we start to sow in caution and scared somebody might say the wrong thing, or might say something that's gonna be unpalatable, I think we strip back that potential to change minds. What I'm not saying though is, Ben, and I think this is where like we've all got a lot of work to do, like on the left, is saying that we don't need to build a framework to make those conversations as safe as possible, especially for oppressed communities. So, you know, we don't want anyone to walk into a space either where they're going to feel kind of persecuted or it's unsafe by the nature of their identity. So we need to decide as a movement, okay, what is the framework for having those conversations, for conversations about all sorts of really difficult issues still being permissible whilst keeping people as safe as possible?
And obviously the NEC is quite a lot of it is about rules, and what you're talking about here is cultures, isn't it? So like I was just thinking as you were speaking there, and it's a difficult question, I suppose, but you know what you want, and you know the kind of party that we should have, and I think you've expressed that really well. But are they, are the leadership listening? Is the General Secretary listening? Do you get that sense, Nadia?
Well, so to be fair, I'm going to say this. I think David does respond. David Evans, the General Secretary, will respond. Not, it's a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm honest. We've put motions forward that we haven't had much dialogue with. We've put emails through, but I find, particularly with the leader and deputy leader, that there is a bit of a barrier, and I think there needs to be a breaking down of that so that there can be more dialogue. So last Thursday, I spoke to Keir when he gave his update, and we talked about the Union Jack and how that other communities might find that, and Keir hadn't really thought about those things, and he said, I'm happy to have more dialogue with you on that. And I think if we could get that, I think that would help them, and it would help us understand where they're coming from. But so I think there definitely seems to be more interaction for me from a personal perspective with the General Secretary than there is the leadership. And I don't know what your view is on that, Laura.
Well, I just think it is like about sometimes a clashing of traditions, isn't it? Like if you've never come from a tradition, and I've only been in these spaces because of my political involvement, where you might be in a meeting and say something and like somebody goes, wait, no, you're wrong, man, what are you saying that for? Where, and like that, it's like exciting, like, oh, what are they gonna say? And like that was a terrible like impression of somebody, I don't know who it was, but you know what I mean, like those really genuine moments of like, okay, I was wrong, and I'd never even thought about it from that point of view. And I'm not saying we should say people are wrong, but those moments, those kind of lovely moments where you just like have your mind changed. And I don't think like if you've only ever been in like really professional non-activist spaces that you might have ever got a glimpse of that. So I suppose it's just trying to explain as much as possible like what would a really healthy constituency Labour Party meeting look like. And it's one where there might be kind of ferocious disagreement that's obviously not personal, but that is very much political. And we just have to chip away, Ben. Like we just have to keep explaining that this isn't a threat to the party. It's not a threat to being in government. This is healthy. It will take us to a better political position, like that's more connected to what's happening. And let's face it, things are very serious for people.
And I mean the flags, some people have criticised us for asking that question, but I think it's an important question because the leadership hasn't considered the impact. We've got elections in Scotland. What does the Union Jack look like to people in Scotland? And I gave an example of growing up and hearing there is no black in the Union Jack, join the National Front. So when I see it, that just automatically comes. I'm not against it, but I think it's just not understanding those nuances, and I think that's why we need a diverse NEC, and we need a diverse kind of within the leadership and Lotto. There needs to be that diversity so that they don't kind of fall into those traps of not thinking about those things.
I'm always worried as well that there's an element of the Labour Party, and I really felt this before 2015, that there's an element that kind of see it in a quite managerialist kind of way. And we've all worked, well, probably we've all worked if you in in companies or in big organizations where the attitude from the managers was kind of we might let you have your say, but there's absolutely no way we're engaging with you, and actually it's quite annoying and disruptive to have you. I mean, I remember being told that I was spiky a few because I'd questioned things, and that is definitely that is a culture within the party, isn't it? And I thought like one of the good things about Corbynism was that it kind of broke some of that down, but it's a bit of a worry that's trying to reassert itself a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying that that this is necessarily a kind of division along political lines, but it does seem to be coming out. I also wanted to, sorry Laura, do you want to say something?
Well, yeah, I think I kind of mentioned it before, didn't I? It's like I just want people to be able to be themselves in a space where they're political. I don't want you to have to pretend you're something that you're not. And I think, and sometimes I do think the convention of politics is deliberately alienating, not just in the House of Commons, but in the Labour Party, in traditional politics. What Corbynism was trying to do was about trying to break from convention, and loads of people have said this to me, I really felt represented by Jeremy, even though he was nothing like me. I felt a sense of representation, and I suppose that must be about being able to be yourself, and it being just feeling more inclusive, and yeah, on the flag thing, these symbols and these signs, and maybe I don't know if you'll talk about this on a different program or whatever, Ben, but it is worth talking about. It is the desires of working class people, and I don't know who, we did try and kind of get to the bottom of what it was for, or what led to that kind of symbolism and being introduced. And Kia gave an answer, but what working class people are experiencing right now is mass unemployment, the potential of redundancy. Working class people in all of their diversity, as we know, have so much to unite around, from Camden, a concert, and everywhere in between, and in other nations, that socialism speaks to. With concrete policies and not just symbolism.
I know, I mean, I'm glad you brought up the issue around the flag. I mean, I have some particularly kind of strong views on it, and I feel that it's very kind of ABC politics, and you have a problem, you address it with this solution. It's I think it's come from a focus group type approach, but actually it's much more complex and longer histories. And I said the other day that I think if people come to the Durham Miners Gala, what they'll see is a whole different working class history that is not about the flag, and it's not and it's a pride in communities. And I do think people definitely have a pride, say in the Northeast and in Durham and the Gala and their communities, but that is a very different thing from the kind of flag waving type pride. And I just wanted to pick up on something with you, Nadia, about how that affects the BAME community, black members that we have. And I know that you're particularly kind of worried about this issue within the party and about the kind of hemorrhaging of members from BME communities and so on. And I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about that, because I think that is really important.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we as the GV5 had quite a diverse team, which is great because we're on the BAME, and I say BAME, and I know everybody likes that, but the Black and Asian Minority Ethnic Working Group, which is all about putting in a proper BAME structure within the party. And I think, that's been so long in the making, and members are so frustrated. And I think with the Ford report and the lack of transparency around that, we are seeing Black and Asian minority ethnic members leave. And I think, but not just those members. We're seeing disabled members, we're seeing young members, and they're our natural voters as well. They're the people that hold our values really close. So I think it is worrying. But I think what I'm kind of hoping is that now that we have more representation on the working group that's looking at the BAME structures, we can start to make some of those changes. I think we've got something like 17,000 Black and Asian minority ethnic members. Now, I remember when the democracy review was being done, which is 3 years ago now. We anticipate there was about 70,000 members. Now, some of that difference will be because we haven't collected the data, but some of that will just be natural attrition because they don't feel that the party's representing them. So I think there's a lot of work for us to do, and I'm definitely involved in that. The anti-Black racism that we encounter, that needs to be addressed, and I've reached out to some MPs to see how we can maybe get a definition around that to help the party understand the nuances of it, and we definitely need that after what happened last Thursday. But yeah, I just think the Black and Asian minority ethnic membership reflects the voters that we have in the community, and we should be encouraging them and making it a safe space for those members to be in the party. And at the minute, there's work to do, but it's definitely something that we're committed to, supporting and trying to drive that forward. And the BAME structure meeting that we've got coming up in 2 weeks, we've actually been able to get them to make sure that we go back to the democracy review and ensure we haven't missed anything from that, because thousands of members took part in that review. That is what we are supposed to represent, is what the members want and asked for, and that I think is hopefully something we will be able to help deliver.
And Laura, you obviously worked for a long time for anti-racist charity, and you've also been an anti-racist activist. So what sort of things do you think could be done to stop that kind of that alienation and that feeling of and that hemorrhaging of members? You're mute.
I do think that it is all about policies, and like policies again sounds like bureaucratic. What I mean is it's about politics. It's about who are we trying to represent, and I think that it is about representing working class people in all of their entirety. The beautifully diverse nature of working class people, from as I say, like somewhere like Concert to Camden. Like we have so many shared experiences. So it is about the commonality, but it's also about recognizing that even within this system, that there is racism, there is sexism, there is transphobia, there is bigotry, there is xenophobia, and not kind of shying away from that, recognizing that people are experiencing that within this system, and that what kind of binds us all together though too is our shared experience within a system that fundamentally discriminates against working class people, and so it is about wages, it is about housing, it is about making sure that that communities are like beautiful, and that there is like joy within communities, and it's not just all about stripping and privatizing. And if we move away from speaking to the central concerns of working class people, of course there's going to be alienation, and of course there's going to be alienation from, if we think about like the intercepting nature of oppression, from those who are particularly marginalized within the system. So I don't think you can just kind of ignore racism, ignore sexism, but I think that the driving factor, I think what attracted people to Jeremy Corbyn's politics was that for the first time he was talking about like music and art and housing and pay, and it just all felt so much more like inclusive, and also acknowledging that you know, that some people have a very deliberately divisive politics which whips up racism, which it whips up that xenophobia, and wants us to look next door at our neighbour to see what they've got, when actually we should be looking up to see what kind of policies are keeping people in poverty. You know, I worked with young people for years and years and years and years who were really angry about the immigration system. And when we spent time like saying, right, come on, pretend you're a person from whatever country, go on the Home Office website, see how easy it is. And once they understood actually it's a really complex system, actually the root of their anger was, you know, how unfair their life was. And I didn't blame them for that anger. So, you know, I suppose in a really roundabout way, then we have to acknowledge racism, we have to talk about it, we have to try and unpick it and all of the other oppressions, but also focus on what will transform people's lives.
Yeah. It's like class war, isn't it? You know, who really is against us, and it's not each other, is it? And we've spoken about that.
And like look at the pandemic. You know, every day in this wonderfully diverse Britain, like people are helping each other in love and compassion. And I've said it before, but we naturally love each other so much that governments have to legislate to divide us and to separate us and to keep people out. And, you know, I suppose we have to like just reject that what is organic is that hatred, you know, and like actually it's been fellow working class people that have got through this. Well, I know we're not through it, but got us this far through the crisis.
You've brought us sort of full circle there, Laura, because you're talking about Valentine's Day again, about socialism being love. And actually, quite seriously, there one of the things that I really loved that you did during the NEC election campaign was the socialism is ... and you did one on love, which I think was the most powerful one in a way. And people kind of forget the kind of positive role of socialism as kind of being about caring for each other, loving. And Jeremy did a good job of describing that actually. But I think it's really important to kind of to put that message out there, because I think a lot of people have an image of socialism as being authoritarian and you know, I think especially there's an influence from the States which sees, you know, which totally equates you know, socialism with a kind of bureaucratic and authoritarian communism. And I mean, it's, you know, it's another conversation, but I think it's, you know, it's really important that, you know, we have people in your kind of, you know, in your with your platform that are able to talk about these things.
I think people try and complicate politics quite a lot, don't they? And like, it's always, I just think it's always those foundational things like, do we have a natural propensity to like reach out and catch someone if they're falling? We do, of course we do. Like, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter about who that person is. I think humans have that propensity to love like a stranger. But so much gets in the way. Capitalism puts so much in the way, so many barriers in the way that we think we don't have that natural love, or we're taught that we don't have that natural love for one another.
But we do see it then, you know, with the mutual aid groups, when obviously, you know, that isn't charity for me, that was socialism, that was neighbours looking out for each other, and that is at the core of humanity, isn't it? I think, and we see that at times of crisis, naturally people, you know, go kind of lean towards socialism without realising, you know, exactly what that is. And it's been demonised, and we know that, you know, the media talked about Corbynism, and actually it was socialism that they were demonising, and unfortunately, you know, Corbyn got the brunt of that.
Yeah, so that's on the next agenda of the NEC meeting. We want a 10-minute slot on why socialism is love. Okay.
Oh my goodness! Can you imagine if there was just like a takeover?
That'd be brilliant.
Just like not in any relation to the agenda items, we just say, well, you know, point 2, I love you. I love you.
Yeah, you can do this when you have your team building days and stuff like that. Listen, it's been we've gone over a bit, and it's been brilliant, and thank you so much. But I just want to give you a quick chance just to say how people can, because you said before about you needing more from members in terms of, like, you know, feedback and also suggestions, and I just wondered if you could just explain how people can get in touch with you and what's the best way to do that. Nadia, do you want to start us off with that?
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously we always said that we would have member surgeries, and obviously we'll start to put some of those out. But the easiest way to get in touch is through email, and if we can put some links, Ben, that'd be really good, if you're able to do that for us. But get in touch via email, because you are able to do that. We are your CLP representatives on the NEC. So if you are communicating with anybody within the party, drop us an email and we will support, we will help. You know, we can't do anything around individual cases, but we can, if things have gone into a black hole, and that even includes things like motions. If your CLP sent a motion and you've not heard about it, we will even look at things like that for you, and we'll chase things up and we'll connect you with people within the party. So we've got email addresses, but we will start to put some member surgeries out over the course of the next kind of year, really.
I was just going to say that last bit, what Nadia said about the surgeries. We're still trying to work out how they'll actually work, but we really want to do them. We don't just want to wait for people to, like, have to email. Again, we want to create opportunities for dialogue, maybe just before the NEC meetings take place, but we're still working that out. Bear with us. Okay,
right. Well, thank you so much, Laura, and thank you, Nadia. And it's been really, really interesting. And I think we, you know, we're on these Pint and Politics shows, it's really good to kind of go off at a bit of a tangent, and we ended up talking about socialism being love and all sorts of stuff. But it's really, you know, and thank you for the work that you're doing behind the scenes and up front. And please, yeah, follow Nadia. Laura's got quite a lot of followers already, but follow her if you don't. But definitely follow Nadia. It's Ms. Jama, isn't it, on Twitter?
It is, yeah.
And because your Twitter game is pretty good as well. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'll end the program there, but thank you. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Night.